All right, thanks so much, guys. Yeah, Chief Growth Officer Frank Carnevale from Universal Proptech joining us today to talk a little bit about the company that specializes in, I love this, Frank, creating healthy buildings. So we're going to talk a little bit not only about the company, but some of the technology that does do just that in creating healthy buildings. Great to have you on the show. Why don't we talk a little bit about overall, introduce us to Universal Proptech.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. This is great. Universal Proptech, it's quite simple. We're about a $10 million a year business, no debt, cash on hand, have about a $6 million backlog. And what we do is we take PropTech, so property technology, and we integrate it into a very traditional HVAC business. And so we're having a lot of fun in Eastern Canada, primarily governmental contracts, very creditworthy counterparties, and we're expanding our business.
It's a lot of information there to pick through first, but I want to talk a little bit about the backlog, because this is pretty impressive, to say the least, to start things off for a company of this size to not only have no debt, but $6 million in sales backlog. Tell us, I guess, how we got to this point.
It's a great situation. We got to this point because even though we've been in a pandemic, as we've been bringing in new products, new solutions, new artificial intelligence applications, it's a great time to go sell and pitch to clients. And so we're building up that backlog. We're getting some projects in the door. We're getting longer term service contracts in the door, and we're building up that ability to really get ahead of our converting these backlogs into revenue. So the higher this number goes, it means for sure we have another $6 million. If everything stopped tomorrow, we have another $6 million that we can work through. We're continuing to grow this. So it's a great sign towards our success and our strategic plan.
Let's talk a little bit about where this is coming from, Frank. Obviously, as things start to reopen, people start to get back into offices and back into some of these buildings that we're talking about. There's been a shift in focus. There's been a lot of attention around how, we're not only going to stay safe with bigger crowds and a lot of people in the same working environment. Tell us a little bit about some of the products that you're finding are in higher demand as we start to reopen some economies.
That's a great question. Indoor air quality, obviously post-pandemic, indoor air quality and making sure that your air is clean and it's purified is pretty critical. And so as only now we're seeing governmental, school boards, governmental organizations starting to spend the money on capital upgrades, ventilation, HVAC, indoor air quality sensors. So we as a company have been saying, look, how do we make sure we can capture that? How do we become the trusted advisor to these companies and make sure we can meet that demand going forward? So we've been doing a lot of great work in the last 7 months to bring in air purification technologies like Air Sniper, to bring in today's announcement, to bring in a new control system that goes after those smaller buildings and actually allows them to save money and be more optimized as we come out of the pandemic. We've brought in things like Lumen Ultra. We're able to do surface testing for COVID on surfaces and desks in classrooms. We're bringing all these technologies. This is really our thesis. We bring all these technologies. They're proven, they're great. But what's missing in the marketplace and for customers is the integration of them. And that's really been our focus, and it's working.
And let's discuss the automation side of this as well, because this is going to be with us, it seems, for the foreseeable future as far as what is needed to keep people safe. Is there a way that some of these products can be automated to just do this in the background and give people a little bit of peace of mind going forward?
Most of what we brought in is all about integrating it into our building automation system. So absolutely, whether it's indoor air quality, we now have these Pierre system sensors that are able to detect particulate matter in a range that are actual viruses. So we can identify if viruses are in your room, and we can use our building automation system to take the data and turn on and turn off ventilation systems, fresh air. We can clear out that bad air very quickly. So everything is about taking all these PropTech technologies and really tying them in with our ability to automate and really control your building automation system. So it's a big part of what we need to do going forward. The market hasn't landed on what is that final solution, but by having all these solutions in our toolkit, it's about being the trusted advisor. And as any one of these solutions take hold with any particular customer, we're in a great position to be able to enable it and take off from there.
I mentioned when I initially teed this up this morning, Frank, that this sector, this group has quickly been growing in the background, a little bit under the radar, maybe even over the past 6 to 8 months, even going back a year or so because of the pandemic. Two questions, I guess. What has, outside of the pandemic, attributed to that growth, and how has Universal Proptech maybe set itself apart from the rest of the competition?
That is a really good question. There's two fundamental things we've done. One is our CEO, Chris Hazelton, and myself. Chris took over the business about a year ago, and I came in about 7 months ago, and we really put some great rigor and great strategy. We have a really good strategy of what we want to take this company to. So you could see not much was happening until that point late last year, and we're really on a tear to bring in the technologies and solutions. The second part is making sure that we really separated ourselves from the pack. We're not your typical HVAC company. We're embedding technology, artificial intelligence, and we're making sure all those pieces make us far more attractive than your typical competitor. And that's really where we're going in the next few months or so.
Frank Carnevale, Chief Growth Officer of Universal Proptech, with us today, talking a little bit about some healthy buildings, which is something that I think people are going to hear more and more in the coming months as we say, get back to something that resembles normalcy. Let's talk about going forward. We had a look at how we got to this point. You talked a little bit about some investments into COVID technology or COVID-related technology. What can people expect next from Universal Proptech?
So we've made some great investments in a COVID technology that will play out in the coming weeks and months. We're in clinical trial with Health Canada. We'll see how that plays out. The investment, we're excited. We know there's some great results. We can't wait for them to share it publicly, and then we will get to share it publicly. Beyond that, what we're doing as a company is making sure as kids go back to the classroom that we have all those solutions and those technologies to enable that to happen safely in these healthy buildings. And beyond that, where are we going as a company? I think your viewers would love this. We're taking this traditional HVAC model, sticking in these technologies, sticking in these investments, and also moving towards building an alternate asset class where we can finance and own a lot of the assets that we're fixing and installing and selling. So we think there's some, a lot of that coming out in the number of months in the second half of this year, coupled with a very aggressive acquisition program. The next few years, we need to, quadruple and really grow significantly as a company, and that's our objective.
We look forward to some of those announcements as we, as we say, get things to a point where people can function once again as a normal society. UPI, guys, the ticker on the TSX Venture Exchange. The other ticker is at the bottom of the screen there. You can check them out if you are interested. Frank Carnevale, Chief Growth Officer at Universal Proptech. A pleasure, Frank. Hope we can do this again soon. Great seeing you.
Thanks for having me.
There we go, guys. Universal Proptech, an interesting technology, something you're definitely going to hear more about in the coming days.